Hey, welcome everybody. It is Talk Back, and as always, we have Mehrdad Kia as a special guest here on the show. I just asked him if anybody brought him an apple on his first day of school at the University of Miami. He said somebody brought you a basket of fruit, right?
Basket of fruit, and we are trying to discover who this person was.
So you should have brought it by. John and I would have been happy to sample it for you. And it'll be the first healthy food we've had all day. I can tell you that right now. Now, would you mind introducing your guest, please?
Not at all. Thank you very much, Peter. Good morning to all your listeners. It is an honor and privilege to be here once again. We have a very special guest today with us. A very special guest, not only in terms of her amazing contribution to the University of Montana since she has arrived here, but also the experience and the knowledge of a very critical country she brings with her. And today, of course, our focus will be the very important country of Afghanistan. Shaima Khinjani is a director and a manager in the Defense Critical Language Program, which is also part of the Mansfield Center. And of course, we had the privilege of having with us former General Don Loringer with us last month. And Don Loringer, to thank him, was one of the people, the principal person actually, who's responsible for recruiting Shaima. So many thanks to Don for bringing such a distinguished scholar and individual here. Shaima is completing her degree at the University of Montana, but she already has several degrees and a BA and an MA, and her focus has been...
She's just showing off now.
Yes. her degree is actually in international relations,
right.
One of her degrees.
Have you had classes with Mehrdad?
He was my former professor.
So did you leave the fruit basket? Can we solve this mystery now?
Wow. Okay, all right.
And of course, more recently, she has been managing the academic aspects of the very important critical language and culture program, which is run through the office in Palmer Street, and it's a branch of the Mansfield Center. Shaima's experience, as she will talk about it in a moment, is incredible because she was there when Taliban seized power in Afghanistan. And as an Afghan woman, she fought for her rights to educate herself and her colleagues and her friends, and we will hear about that. And she also watched as the country went through one of the most tumultuous chapters of its very long and rich history. So it's really a privilege to have Shaima with us. Welcome, Shaima.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kia, for the nice introduction. And thank you, Peter and John, for having us here this morning. And good morning, Missoula.
Now, would you mind just explaining a little bit about your background? Obviously, we know you're from Afghanistan. So if you would tell us a little bit about your childhood, maybe how you grew up. And Professor Kia has already intimated that you lived through some tumultuous times.
Sure. I was born in Kabul, the capital of the country, in a middle-class family. My father was a civil servant, and my mother was a housewife. I have almost probably, we are 10 siblings. I have 4 sisters and 5 brothers. So I was in a family that education was not very important. Not too important for girls, it was very normal at that time. And it was tough to go to school, during the Civil War, and then during the Taliban time, women and girls were not allowed to go to school, and I was at high school at that time. And at that time, myself and my sisters, we opened a school for women and girls in our basement.
Really?
Yes, which was illegal at that time for the Taliban.
May I just stop you for a second? Because I'm always the one with the dumb questions, okay? And that is this. What was the problem with the Taliban and women being educated? Why was that ban instituted in the first place?
Well, before the Taliban regime during the Civil War, as you know, and in any country, in any place during the war, women are more vulnerable, and they are manipulated and they are used in many forms by politicians at that time. So during the Civil War, even before the Taliban, there was a lot going on women's issue, and most people blamed women because after the communist regime fall down, the mujahideen came to the cities, and most of them had never seen the city women and all that. And most of them married for the third and second, probably for the fourth time and all that. So women were considered one of source of corruption at that time, which made the warlord to just get busy with women and forget about their main job and defending the country and all that. So that was probably...
You're just too distracting for their own good.
Exactly.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
So Taliban took even more harsher approach toward that and asked the women to stay home. Just stay home, and in case of emergency, if they were going out, they needed to be fully covered with burqa and accompanied by a male member of the family. So I was one of those women, and with my 4 sisters, we had to stay home and just obey the order at that time.
So when they were telling you this, it wasn't really out of religious impulse. It was to keep the military and the powerful in check.
Well, they used religion justification for that as well. I know going to religion, talking about religion is not an easy topic, but for the Taliban, as everybody knows, they took really harsher approach and a really harsh interpretation of Islam to justify their behavior toward women as well.
Okay, so you were living through this, and you started a school. So pick up there.
Yes. So of course, being at home was not easy. For quite a long time, I was depressed. I didn't know what to do. How much of housework you can do with my sisters, and then it was actually my older sister's idea. So let's open a school for women and girls. Then we put on our burqas and we went to the neighboring, knocking the door and talking to the parents. And little by little, they sent their daughters to our home. And in no time, we had almost 100 students.
Wow.
100 students to teach. My family wasn't happy about it. My father was okay, and my brother was not happy at all. My brother is also one of those kids who grew up during the Taliban, and to him, this was dishonoring the family. And one time he even beaten me. He is now in Holland. He probably hear me, or I will send him the link to hear me. He told me I'm dishonoring the family by teaching women and girls. So my father was okay, but not so well about it.
Yeah, we're up against a break. I'm sorry to break in here in just a second. We'd love to have some phone calls. I know we have headphones for you, so you'll be able to respond to callers. Our lines are open at 721-1290. Our guest, of course, with Dr. Mehrdad Kia, is Shaima Khinjani, and we will be right back with more in just a moment. We're back on Talk Back. Special guests in the studio, of course, John King. I'm Peter Christian, Dr. Mehrdad Kia, the University of Montana. And we have Shaima Khinjani here in the studio with us, talking about her experiences in Afghanistan. So go ahead, John.
Yeah, I think at this point in the discussion of the Middle East, most Americans have some idea that there's this big divide between Shia and Sunni. But inside of countries like Afghanistan, there's even further splits. And it's my understanding that there's this ethnic group called the Hazaras, which has recently suffered a tragic a bomb attack in Kabul. ISIS, I think, claimed responsibility for the attack. And a lot of people, after reading about that attack, I found out about them. Frankly, I'd never heard about Hazaras before I read this story. But a lot of Hazaras are saying that they're just daily being persecuted. I was wondering if you had experienced this, and maybe you could talk about your own background and some of the different ethnic backgrounds in Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good question, John. I know, as everybody knows, Afghanistan has different ethnic groups, and one of the major source of conflict in the country is the division and the fight among different ethnic groups over the power. And the two the two major ethnicities that has been in power are Pashtuns and Tajik. And Hazaras has been discriminated through the history of Afghanistan, not only now. But after the the U.S. led invasion in Afghanistan after 2011 and Karzai's government, it's not the same. So Hazaras are in power right now. They have several ministers, several generals in the military. And also we have a huge population of Hazaras returning from Iran, highly educated. They are having job, they are having their business, and they are having a better life right now in the society, in the safe and secure society. And other ethnicities are more open toward them now, and they know we are in a different time period now, and we need to live together.
The word, I'm just to elaborate on what Shaima just said. Hazara means 1,000, 1,000. I mean, that's simply what the word means. And it refers originally, according to some scholars, to the 1,000 units of Mongols who invaded Central Asia and Afghanistan and Iran back in 13th century. But having lived there for centuries, settled there, they basically adopted Islam. They adopted Shia Islam as their religion. And then they started speaking Persian. So they are Persianized and they are Islamized in some ways. But because of their appearance sometimes, because it goes back to the kind of the physical Mongolian, sort of appearance, they were discriminated against for centuries by the other major ethnic groups, as Shaima said. But recently they have had their own party, Hizb Wahdat, the Party of Unity. Some of them went to Iran, they received training, education. But Iran also uses them as a way of influencing the politics of Afghanistan as well. And that's why sometimes, Tajik leaders and Pashtun leaders say they're not trustworthy because they're in alliance with the power to the West. So that's just building on what Shaima has already beautifully described. Yeah.
So if Hazaras are Shia, usually, and their bloodline comes from Mongolia originally, what about the Pashtuns and the Tajiks? Where do they fit into that picture? Would they be Shia or Sunni, and what would be their background?
The Pashtuns and Tajiks are majority Sunni, dominantly Sunni. It's difficult to talk about statistics in Afghanistan because there aren't valid statistics because of the war and what's going on in the country. But what is available is they count the Shias as somewhere between 15 to 20% of the overall population. But the rest of the country and all ethnicities are Sunni Muslims.
And with the Pashtuns and the Tajiks, where do they hail from? Were they just always in Afghanistan, or were they some other invading army that came and just bloodlines merged?
That's another interesting question, and Dr. Kia can elaborate further on it. But what I know is, before Afghanistan was as one country, it was just different tribes. And the first time when all tribes were united and Afghanistan became as one country, it was by a Pashtun leader. The country was united. So that's why even up to today, Pashtuns are considered themselves as a main Afghans and as the honor of the country, and that's why they claim to be in power. And since then, everybody knows the history. Even before the Pashtun unite Afghanistan and made it as one country, it was part of the Persian Empire, and Tajiks and Persian-speaking people was the majority of the people, and the rich history and or whatever today you can see in Afghanistan goes back to that time.
They are the direct descendants, both Pashtuns and Tajiks, are actually come from the same origins. Though right now, because of language and region, they have these conflicts over power, they are all coming from the same Indo-European ethnic linguistic origins. So they share a great deal in terms of language and culture with the larger people who lived within the Persian Empire. And the center of the Persian Empire for a long time was Kabul, was Herat, was Kandahar. So Afghanistan was one of the central components of that Persian state. But when it collapsed, it went into pieces. Afghanistan became one piece. Iran became one piece. Parts of Central Asia. And these different groups basically began to vie for power. But since the Pashtuns were responsible for putting Afghanistan together, they have always claimed that Afghanistan is more or less a little bit like a Pashtunistan. That is, Pashtuns should actually run the country while the others kind of follow them. Yeah.
That's good. And everybody knows that the main source behind this ethnic division, there was something from the beginning, and then the invaders and the superpowers who invaded the country used that to further divide the ethnicities in Afghanistan, so it becomes easy for them to dominate the
And one issue that we should always remember is that a large portion of the Pashtun population actually lives in Pakistan. And the British intentionally separated the Pashtuns, gave part of the Pashtun population to Afghanistan, and kept some of them in old British-occupied India. So for this reason, there is a line called the Durrant Line. That Durrant Line is a British artificial line separating the same people who come from the same language, same culture, and same history.
Brilliant, as always. Yeah. Thank you, imperialists. Oh, we're going to come right back with more of Talk Back, and we have all four of our lines open. If you'd like to visit with Shaima Khinjani or Dr. Mehrdad Kia, we'll be right back. This is Talk Back. 721-1290 is our number. All four lines open. Dr. Mehrdad Kia, University of Montana, Department of History, and we have Shaima Khinjani. She's from Afghanistan and doing also very important work at the University of Montana. But right now, we're discovering more about her heritage and history and what's going on in Afghanistan. So where were we before we took a break?
We just got a quick thumbnail sketch of at least 3 ethnic groups in Afghanistan, and then during the break, Mehrdad informed me there was like 20 more. So I think that rabbit trail might have to end where we're at. And let's get back to the school. So you have your family has a school in your basement with 100 people in it, all women and girls. And who's teaching them?
No, perhaps even more important than how many bathrooms?
Only one.
Oh, boy. Well, there's a spirit of cooperation right there.
It's like the police department.
Oh, go ahead, please.
Well, I was teaching with my 3 sisters. So we were 4 teachers. 4 teachers for almost 100 students was not enough, but this is what we could do at that time. And we could not say no to those women and girls who came to our home for the only hope to seek education.
Now, may I ask, what kind of things were you studying?
We were just basically teaching reading and writing.
Okay.
So just these women and girls can read and write. So I was only a high school student, and my younger sisters were grade 8 or 9 at school. And only my older sister was graduate high school, and she was originally a teacher. Okay. So we were not even, we didn't have even any degree to teach, but we just wanted to keep these women, educated in the level to just read and write.
Did you ever get caught? Did authorities ever walk in and did you just pretend like you were having a big sleepover?
Many other schools were caught and they were put in jail for that, and they had a very hard punishment for the job they were doing. We were lucky that we were not caught because of 2 reasons. First, my father became very protective, and he used to be our bodyguard and just stay outside and watch for everything. He was very smart, spoke Pashto and Darien, all the languages very well. And the other reason was in our house, we had a water pump. The entire community, the neighborhood used to come to our home to take water. What we did for all of our students, we had a sets of books that stayed in the classroom. They never carried book with them. They used to bring just pretending they are coming after water. So our house was always crowded, so that's why we were lucky not being caught.
Sounds a little bit like Schindler's List or something, doesn't it?
Yeah, we're up against our hard break here, so we have another hour to spend with Shaima Khinjani. Love to have your phone calls or questions if you have them. 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. You can also, if you're at work or can't get to the phone, you can also place your questions or comments on our Facebook page. We'll be happy to pass those along as we continue. This is Talk Back here on KGVO, 1290 AM and 101.5 FM. If you haven't done it yet, you can download the new KGVO app. It is awesome, and it's free. So we'll be right back. And we're continuing now with a fascinating conversation here in the studio. Dr. Mehrdad Kia joining us, along with Shaima Khinjani. She is from Afghanistan and working at the University of Montana right now. So where were we before the news interrupted here?
Well, we heard some really amazing things during the break, and I want to go back to talking a little bit about the school and your sister and some threats that were. Can you go into a little bit of the history there?
Yeah, sure. So my older sister, who was who had the idea of creating that school for women and girls at that time in Kabul, she is in Missoula, Montana right now. No, she used to work for Afghani Independent Election Commission. She was head of one department there, and she was advocating for women's rights, and her responsibility was to make sure that the number of women's participation in the election, both as a candidate and as a voter, increased. She had a tough job in an Afghan society. She was facing a lot of discrimination. The discrimination started from her own husband, and a very abusive husband, married to 4 women. And my sister was the only working woman, and she was mostly discriminated because the man didn't work and he wanted her money.
Discriminated because she's a woman, or because of her heritage, or because of her religion, or because she was teaching, or all of the above?
Discriminated because she was woman. She was a working woman. She was not a house domesticated woman. She was not in house. She was working outside. That's why she was discriminated even more. And the other discrimination from society, a lot of challenges in the society to have that tough job in a male-dominant society. And the threat, security threat from Taliban. She got a threatened letter when she was in north part of Afghanistan, a province called Baghlan and a city called Pulikhumri. She used to work there. And when she got the threat letter, she moved to Kabul, the capital of the country, to be safer, with her kids. And then she got another job with the Independent Afghan Election Commission there. And, she was traveling to provinces and all that. It was not secure and safe for her. So the final threat that she faced and made her to move to the United States was in Kabul, inside Kabul. Somebody, we still don't know who, they killed a woman and put her body in a box and put it behind her door.
Wow.
That was a threat to her to stop working for women. And that was, that's a big threat.
I take it that was not successful, I take it. Yeah, she kept on doing it, though, right?
She left Afghanistan, Peter.
She did, okay.
She left Afghanistan.
Okay.
The woman that was killed, was it a student, or what was the relationship? Was there any relationship between the woman and your sister?
No details. The woman was killed so badly that nobody could recognize her face. She was tortured before killing.
Now, your sister, who sounds a lot like a hero, really. I mean, I can't
she
imagine
is a hero, yeah.
to teach girls in a country under threat of death. Was she even being paid for it?
Very little.
It was more like a service.
$1 a month fee for every kid.
So when teachers in America complain about not getting paid enough,
they shouldn't complain.
Talk to your sister, right? So and then to face death threats, literally death threats with torture involved. And now she is a refugee now. Is that right?
Is, yeah.
And lives in Missoula.
Before coming to Missoula, she was in New Jersey for several months. And ironically, in New Jersey, a woman who has faced so much physical threat by her husband, you can see the sign of violence in her face and body. She was put into fire one time, and another time her husband put boiled water on her.
Oh, my goodness.
You can see the sign of threat all of her body, and then the threat from the Taliban, from the society and all that. Women totally traumatized came to this country for seeking a better life, the land of opportunity. So surprisingly, in New Jersey, another woman attacked her for covering and for being Muslim.
What was the attack in New Jersey?
She was going to the hospital. She has diabetes, On her way back early in the morning, 6 o'clock, New Jersey time, and 4 o'clock our time, I got a phone call from her, and she was screaming that, Shaima, here, a woman want to attack me. She spit on my face. She smoked cigarette in my face. She is taking my picture. And now she started beating me and yelling at me, "You're Muslim. I hate Muslim. I hate you. You are Arab. I hate you." And she's like, "I don't know what to do here." So I told her, call 911. So she called 911. Before 911 was there, another woman came and rescued her. She was panicked. She was even more traumatized.
Was that the last thing she expected to happen in America? Yeah.
That's very unfortunate.
Has she suffered any kind of abuse from the public in Missoula, do you know?
Not yet. After that incident in New Jersey, I asked her to move to Missoula. She came to Missoula. People would say, well, Montana, Missoula, this is where she would probably face more discrimination.
Just so you know, people from New Jersey and New York are not known for their street etiquette.
Anyway, but we have asked if you would approach her, and I know she doesn't speak English, so you would have to come as an interpreter. We would love to hear her story out here on Talkback. I think it would be an honor to have her. So if you could work on that, we'd really appreciate it.
Sure, I will talk to her.
Okay, great. And we're going to come right back. We have Craig on the line. We have 3 lines open. 721-1290 is our number. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this break. This is Talkback. It is Thursday, the first day of September, and we have a smoky sky in western Montana. Air quality is unhealthy for sensitive groups, in case you were wondering what the City County Health Department has to say. So grab those headphones. We have a caller on the line. We have Shaima Khinjani joining us here in the studio, along with Dr. Mehrdad Kia, and Craig is on the phone. Craig, good morning.
Hey, good morning, folks. So, New Jersey, this sister of yours is going in New Jersey, and she was going to the hospital to get her drugs for her
Diabetes.
Yeah. So, and then she gets kind of thumped by this other gal. Well, this other gal, she was probably rejected for any medical help that she needed, and she's probably upset that these folks come to our country because they can't stand what's going on in their country, but yet they want to drag all the crud here that ran them out of their country and still wearing their burqas and their Muslim faith and everything, but yet getting free medical care here.
Okay, well, hold on a second. Was the medical care she receiving, was that free, or what? Do we know?
Yes, the medical care she was receiving was free.
Okay, because she's a refugee, right?
She is a refugee, right?
Right. Okay.
Right.
All right. So Craig, obviously you have a problem with that.
I do, because it just makes refugees out of our citizens.
Mm-hmm. But the woman who attacked her was not somebody who was seeking for free health services. She was a rich, white woman with a very expensive car.
Yes, and one that wasn't wearing. Why do you people run from your country where the Muslim faith is what's really putting a thumb on you, but when you come here, you bring your faith? Well,
Craig, if you don't mind, have you been listening to the conversation of what happened to this woman in her own country? And the reason she came to America, that's the reason why many people are refugees coming to America looking for refuge.
Well, listen, Peter, you guys hold these propaganda hours.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
Oh, I know, for heaven's
sake. Craig, you're talking right now. How can it be propaganda if you're disagreeing with us on the air?
Yeah. Ready to love everything that's going on here.
All right. Talk to you later, Craig.
Thanks for the call. Wow. Okay.
For the record, propaganda doesn't allow people to call in and speak their point of view.
And it doesn't make us the bad guy if we happen to disagree with you. So there you go.
Okay, here's I think what Craig represents, though, is a large portion of America that feels that Islam is a threat, and that people that believe in Islam are also a threat. And they have a really hard time seeing countries like Afghanistan and Iraq or Iran. And when they look at these countries that all seem to be, frankly, to us, kind of hellholes, there's a common theme, and that seems to be Islam. Mm-hmm. Can you distance that for us? Can you help us understand things from your point? Because I understand you still are a Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
I am.
So how do you see the formation of what went wrong with your country outside of Islam, or where do you see the divide there?
Well, that's a very tough question, but from my understanding, let's separate Islam from politics. If we separate Islam from a politics and just leave it as a religion, a spiritual religion, that's different. You know, if we look at Afghanistan and other Islamic countries, that the situation is bad, and we consider Islam as a source of the what's going on in the country. You know, let's also consider the external ends, the powerful country's hand in that country. You know, it's not, you know, it's a war country. You know, it's a war country, and between several political interests in there, and it's what we are facing today is not Islam, it's terrorism. It's terrorism, and Muslims themselves are even more vulnerable to that. You know, like my sister, you know, like my cousin, my first cousin, a Muslim, in Afghanistan, was tortured and killed because of working for the U.S. military in Afghanistan as a translator. You know, he was the first vulnerable by the terrorists, by the Taliban, and then, you know, foreigners can be.
What we have heard many times, including from Dr. Kia and others of the Islamic faith who have come on our show to talk about this, one theme always emerges, and that is that the people who claim the Islamic faith have or doing the terrorism are using Islam as a platform upon which to spread their political hatred and the fact that they want to take over the world and that sort of thing, and they're using their religion as to be more acceptable within their own countries. Is that right?
And they are using their religion, they are using religion because, to my belief, they are not Muslim.
Okay.
They are not believer at all, because in Islam, that violence to that extent is not allowed. You know?
Okay.
And I think we have talked about this in previous shows, that we make at least a very clear distinction between Islam as a religion and Islam as a political ideology. Taliban, Al-Qaeda, Daesh, or Islamic State, these are organizations that use Islam as a political ideology for terror. The overwhelming majority of the victims of these political Islamist, fundamentalist, terrorist organizations are the Muslims themselves. And look at the number of Muslims they have killed in Afghanistan, but also in Iraq, in Syria, on a daily basis. Women being enslaved, innocent children being destroyed by these terrorists. So, yeah, it is quite easy to sort of overgeneralize and homogenize, 1.5 billion people as all belonging to this faith and therefore being dangerous. But that's really missing the point, because we are missing the complexities and the internal dynamics of each of these societies. As much as there is terrorism in Afghanistan, there is a struggle. And the person who is speaking to you today, Shaima, is a very clear representative of that. There is a desire for change, reform, democracy, women's rights.
Right.
There is an ongoing struggle. And if we put all Afghan people in one bag and say you're all terrorists, we are actually undermining the very people with whom we should work and we should support to change the situation on the ground.
One of the problems that I think many people see in this country is that if you just list out all the terrorist acts over the last several years, it's like 99.9% were all committed by Muslims. And so when folks come over to America, the fear is, oh my gosh, it's coming here. And I understand, although I disagree with Craig's his comments toward you, but I understand the fear. I really do, because it blankets America right now, and it's very pervasive. So this is one of the reasons why I appreciate folks like you being willing to come on the radio, tell your story, humanize the fact that you're a real human being. Your sister is a real human being who's gone through all this, and maybe we can just kind of maybe understand a little bit more. So anyway, we're going to come right back. Go ahead,
On Facebook, Josh says, if you wanted free health care, you should have voted for Bernie Sanders, Craig.
All right, we have Jim and Bob and Diane, and we have one line open. Everybody wants to visit with you. So we're going to come right back with Shaima Khinjani and, of course, Dr. Mehrdad Kia in a moment. Hey, we are back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number, and the phone lines are full. But I wanted to, Shaima, if you don't mind, when I closed out the last segment, talking about the fears that Americans have when you look at all the terrorist acts that have happened around the world, that fear can be understandable. And you wanted to respond to that.
Mm-hmm. And before going to that specific response, I want to a little bit talk about, this fear of terrorism and Islam is a recent phenomenon. It's not, if you go back to the history of America, America is a society composed of immigrants. Let's not forget about the contribution that the Muslims did to this country. One of the reasons this country is great because of that openness for all faiths to come here and practice their faith in a free society, as well as be a good citizen and contribute to this country.
And in a peaceful way.
Exactly,
right,
in a peaceful way.
Right.
John was asking me a question about Sufism, and I told him I almost rediscovered Islam here in this country. And going back to New Jersey, I was always also first landed in New Jersey. I was introduced to a beautiful Turkish, an American, it was an international mosque, Sufi mosque. I became a Sufi there, because it was the first time I, as a Muslim, had the opportunity to pray at the mosque, in a very peacefully environment, and not to worry about anything. Just be yourself and pray and for the best. I'm not still. I still don't have the honor of being an American citizen. I'm just a permanent resident here with my husband and with my 2 kids here in Missoula. As a Muslim, as an immigrant, I try to do my best, to this country. I got the education from this country, and now I feel obligated to give back. I go to schools, I talk, and I educate people. Aside from that, for the job I'm doing, training U.S. military, for that I paid the price of losing my own country and my own people. I cannot go back to Afghanistan. I can't see the city I was born and raised. My heart beats every minute for that, but I can't go because I will be killed. For the job I'm doing, as a Muslim again, I'm considered a traitor to most people in back home, especially Taliban. And if they know the details about the job I'm doing, they probably kill even my family who are back home. I, as a Muslim, I'm more vulnerable to terrorists, and yet, as an immigrant, I try to do my best in this country.
Sure. All right. So let's get to the phones. And Jim, thank you for holding, sir. You've been waiting the longest. Go ahead. You're on.
Well, a couple things. I noticed that when the question was asked, okay, you have all these so-called hellholes throughout the world, these Muslim countries. What causes it? Basically speaking, the question was avoided, and it ended up being something that the big, powerful countries are partly to blame for it. The reality of it is you have to blame Islam, period.
Okay.
And there's no other way around it. Islam is what Muslims believe in. It is a political system, an educational system, a monetary system, a government system, and it is all-encompassing of a person's life. You cannot differentiate and take out chunks here and there. You either believe in it or you don't. And the terrible, terrible part about it is it's an absolute religion, and women are treated horribly in it. The Prophet Muhammad said that women are defective, and that hell has more women in it than men because women are mentally defective. And if you look at how women are treated in Islam, it's horrible. Gay people, jeepers, they kill them. They're supposed to be killed. That's terrible.
Okay,
and that's something that is incompatible with our Constitution.
Okay, well, Jim, let's let Shaima respond to you, okay?
Well, I want to
Thanks for the call.
I want to start with Islam and women, and I like Jim to pay close attention to all Islamic countries in the world, not only those countries women are abused, even in those countries. Let's see the first women head of state and to run a political party are in Islamic countries. And if we were lucky to get Hillary Clinton elected this time, that would be the first time in the history of America, a great democratic society. But look at Bangladesh, look at Pakistan, look at Malaysia, look at Indonesia. All those Islamic countries have more women in power as head of a state, as ministers. And let's see Morocco. Morocco is an Islamic country as well. They have 7 to 8 female ministers. And how many females in power are here? Women are abused in one way or another in the all world. Let's take a look at to the America itself. How many women get killed by their boyfriend and husband daily basis?
Just come to justice court with me sometime.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The law-paid jobs for women is a discrimination. Let's see it with more open eyes. Even in Afghanistan, yes, we have this discrimination going on, but that's as a result of poverty, lack of education, all those different systems imposed on ordinary people. But still, in Afghan parliament, we have 37% female representative. We don't have that in the U.S.,
Yeah, we have more than 37 women in the House.
Congress.
Yeah. A question, though, for you. I think that your point is well taken, that women suffer all over the world. There's abuse and horrible things that go on all over the world. I don't think anyone would really disagree with that. But Jim's question was more along the lines of the institutions that govern daily life. For example, our legal codes in the United States, as far as I know, are pretty non-discriminatory at this point. Women aren't biased because of the system that's in control in the United States. But our last caller, Jim's point, was that in Islam itself, in the book, in the Quran, it outlines subjugation of women. And that this theme runs through many of these countries, whether or not there's a number of women in power or not, that this is the source of that subjugation. And I'm curious to see how you deal with that accusation, because, I mean, your point is well taken. There's suffering all over the world. But his point was that the rubric that governs society is the source of it.
It would have been very nice if Jim had mentioned some examples of Quran, in which verses of Quran it says that.
Well, he didn't
Quran
cite the verses, but he tried to quote a few.
Yeah. I can talk about Afghanistan at least at this point. Afghanistan is not 100% based on Sharia law, and especially toward women. We have a lot of good laws in place for women. When I said 27 women, I didn't say 20. I didn't mean 27 women are in the parliament. 27% of overall parliament. 37%. My apology. Are women. We have gender quota system. Women get elected to the parliament directly. We have legal age for marriage. We have Afghanistan is one of the countries that signed CEDAW, the Convention on Discrimination or all form of discrimination against women, and even the United States itself is not hasn't signed that the CEDAW yet. We have good systems, we have good rules and regulation in place, but the problem is with weakness of the government that cannot enforce those good rules and regulations toward women.
We're up against a break, and we have all four lines ready to go. Diane, Catherine, Dave, and Marilyn all want to visit with you. This is a great discussion. I hope that you're learning something from it and not just putting up your hands and saying, no, la, 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 I don't want to listen. So we're going to come right back with more of talking. That does happen every now and then. We'll be right back.
With the help of the outside.
Hey, we're back on Talkback, and I wish you could take part in some of the conversations we have off air. It's very, very enlightening. So, Mehrdad, you wanted to make a point before we go to our next call. Right?
No, building up on what Shaima was saying and what Jim was asking before, I completely agree with Jim that when Sharia becomes the ideology and the constitution of an Islamic country, we are in trouble. because Sharia has a lot of problematic issues which comes with it, including the treatment of women. But then I also agree with Shaima that not all Islamic countries or predominantly Muslim countries are run by the Sharia. Then that would be equating the Republic of Turkey with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, which is not only absurd, but it's actually foolish. Turkey has a history of women assuming positions of power, receiving very high jobs in the government and in the private sector, and has one of the highest number of educated women in the society anywhere in the world. I would also use Tunisia, for example. Tunisia is an Arab country, is an Islamic country, and has one of the highest number of educated women in the entire world. But then you look at Saudi Arabia, and absolutely Jim is correct. Sharia dominates, and as a result, there is subjugation of women legally, socially, economically, and politically. But these are all parts of the Islamic world. The Islamic world does not constitute one world, does not constitute a monolith.
Okay, let's continue with our calls. Diane's been waiting the longest. Hi, Diane, you're on.
Hello.
Go ahead. Hi.
I just wanted to respond from quite a ways back, that one caller who was angry about the entire thing of having Muslim refugees come in, and I just have to say he might want to go back and read what's written on the Statue of Liberty, which says, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed, to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door."
All right. Well said. Thanks for the call. So any comment on that?
Awesome. Thank you very much, Diane.
Okay.
I also wanted to say to Jim that, let's America be great, be generous. America is more generous than what you say. It has been welcoming immigrants with open arms for centuries. That's why it's a great country, and that's why people come here.
Okay, let's move along and get Catherine. Hi, Catherine. Go ahead.
Good morning. Okay, this is directed more to Mehrdad than, but I wanted to say a couple of things. Islam, like Catholicism in the Middle Ages, is a universalist evangelistic philosophy and theology. And it is my observation that Islam, because it is a religion that encompasses a political, social, cultural agenda, is being used, and that's the operative word right there, is used, as a battering ram to produce changes in this country that are more amenable to globalism and those who support it and profit from it, and those who want to do away with the notion of individualism and national boundaries. And it's been attempted before in history many times by many people in many parts of the world. Secondly, immigration in every country, every country has an absolute right to control and vet who comes in and its borders. The last 2 centuries, vetting has gone on in this country for health, as an example, to ensure certain diseases didn't take hold here. Diseases like resistant tuberculosis, which is on the rise. And last, Milton Friedman once said, you can have immigration or you can have welfare, but you can't have both and keep your country. Response?
Okay, thanks for the call.
What can I say to those amazingly beautifully stated statements, Catherine? I completely agree with all the statements you made. I'm always afraid when it comes to immigration. And I am not an expert, and I'm just sort of talking maybe a little bit from my own personal experience, that, again, we homogenize the refugees. They're all, this or that. I watched tens of thousands of Iranians today who are Iranian Americans coming to this country with a PhD, MA, or BA degree on one hand and a credit card on the other hand, the result of the Iranian Revolution of 1979. And I look at what they are doing now, the number of companies they're starting in California, the number of jobs they're creating. And I want to sort of ask those from European heritage, how many of you created companies and how many of you created businesses and how many of you created the kind of prosperity that one community has created since 1979? So to actually turn the entire Muslim refugee population as a monolith of terrorists is not only insulting and racist, sorry to say, it's actually ahistorical by fact. There are many, tens of thousands of refugees from predominantly Islamic countries, Afghanistan, Iran, Turkey, elsewhere, who have contributed enormously to the prosperity, growth, and progress of this country. Having said that, I am the first one to say that any refugee who comes to this country should be vetted, and especially if they are coming from war zones, especially if they are coming from countries like Syria, Iraq, when there is a civil war and there is Islamic State. We need to have very tough regulation admitting people, but that does not mean that the overwhelming majority of refugees will not contribute to the growth and prosperity of our United States of America.
Okay, and with that, we need to take a break. Dave and Marilyn, if you'll hang on, we have two lines open. Things are going very well. This is a great conversation. We love having you guys on the air, and we'll let you have your say. But remember, we are free to disagree or agree. We'll be right back. Okay, we are back. 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. This is Talk Back. John King, Peter Christian, Dr. Mehrdad Kia, also joining us in studio Shaima Khinjani. She's an Afghani woman who has basically lost her country because of what you're doing here for the military. So go ahead.
Yeah. I wanted to bring that up, the idea that you've lost your country, because that was talked about off air. I don't think most of the listeners got to hear it. But you moved to America. You're helping the Department of Defense. Mm-hmm. You're helping educate young veterans, the pride of Montana, the pride of America, learn the language to go back and deal with some of these conflict areas in the world. And for that, you gave up what? What would happen to you if you ever went home?
If I go home, I will be killed right away. To most people, like I said, I'm a traitor. I'm I'm training the enemy how to take over my country. I'm teaching them the language, and I'm teaching them, the secret of the people and the society. How to help him better occupy my country. Basically.
So why would you do that? I want you to just pretend you have listeners in Afghanistan listening to you right now. Mm-hmm. Why did you become a traitor? Why would you want to do that?
Well, I'm not a trader. I'm an educator. And in Islam, an educator, and a mu'allim, and a ma'allim, or the teacher is the most holy job you can have. I'm educating people on the language and cultures of strategically important countries. I'm a teacher, and I'm proud of my job. I'm not a trader to myself.
Okay, all right. Let's get back to the phones, and it's been a very rich conversation. Dave, go ahead.
I have two things to say. First, I was wondering about the Taliban. Do you think the Taliban eventually, if the United States leaves, will come back and it'll all go back to the Taliban kind of way?
Mm-hmm. What do you think?
Absolutely. Even with the withdrawal since 2014, we see the how powerful Taliban has become, and day by day they are taking different part of the country, and not only Taliban. ISIS is coming to Afghanistan. Before it was Taliban, now it's ISIS and Taliban. They're fighting with each other, and they are taking part of several districts in Afghanistan, in Kabul right now. And we are facing a different phase of war now. Before the Taliban or the ISIS was not there, the Taliban, if they had taken a part of the country, they didn't kill women, they didn't rape women, they didn't kill children, but now they are doing that. Last year they took over of a province in north part of the Afghanistan, Kunduz province. They went to the hospital and raped women, raped doctors, and they put their body on the streets. It's a different phase of war, a very extreme and challenging war.
And Taliban, building on what Shaima just said, Taliban is also being fed, armed, funded by, we don't have time to get into that, but by a neighboring country, Pakistan. And an ally of United States, by the way. It's fascinating. No calls ever come about the fact that it's U.S. dollars funding Islamic fundamentalism. It's U.S. oil companies buying oil, cheap oil from Saudi Arabia and funding Wahhabism and Islamic fundamentalism. It is United States selling arms and technology to Pakistan, allowing Pakistan to transfer some of this arms and technology to Taliban, which is wreaking havoc inside Afghanistan. And as long as there is Pakistan, to which Taliban can retreat to, recruit and attack targets in Afghanistan, Taliban would be almost impossible to deal with or to crush.
Okay. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, one more thing about, Islam. There's a lot of Americans who are just claiming it's the root of all evil. And in my mind, it's fear. Not too long ago, fear of a certain sect of Jews caused a lot of Christians to kill a lot of Jews. And we need to fight the idea that people who are different, we have to fear them.
And of course, fear comes always.
Thanks, Dave.
With your excellent comment, Dave. Fear always comes from ignorance. And ignorance is something that we have to deal with. And that's what Shaima is doing. Shaima is educating the members of the United States Armed Forces about the cultures and languages of a world of which we remain very ignorant.
Go ahead, John. Make your comment, then we got to take a break.
Yeah, a lot of people on Facebook are commenting about your hope that Hillary Clinton is elected. I thought that was an interesting statement to make on a political talk show. But the other thing I wanted to follow
imagine
up with,
that, yeah.
The other thing I wanted to follow up with was, a lot of people blame the current administration, the Obama administration, and acolytes of that administration like Hillary Clinton for the withdrawal, which has led to what you're describing as the Taliban gaining influence in Afghanistan. Do you fear that if Hillary Clinton is elected, that Afghanistan will be turned over to the Taliban?
If we go back to the mistakes, the policy is that the United States had toward Afghanistan, it's not from Hillary Clinton. All of them are not from her. And let's go back to the Cold War, when the source of all this Taliban emergence and all that started at the end of the Cold War.
I'm not saying that all of history is to be blamed on Hillary Clinton by any means. I'm just saying that the support for the withdrawal from Afghanistan, that's part of Hillary Clinton's administration, right? You just said that it was detrimental to Afghanistan. So aren't you afraid of more of that?
A gradual withdrawal is good. Eventually Afghans need to take the charge and be responsible for their own country. And what's going on now, the emphasis on training Afghan National Army to take charge. But the withdrawal will be good, as Dr. Kia mentioned, that yes, withdrawal from Afghanistan, but more pressure on Pakistan to stop producing more Talib or ISIS and sending them to Afghanistan.
Okay, we're up against it. Matter of fact, way overdue for a break. We have Marilyn and Charles both still want to get in on the conversation. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Okay, we are back. 721-1290 is our number. How about you start talking about Bigfoot? I have no idea. All right, let's get to the phones, get as many calls in as we can. And Marilyn, thank you for holding. Go ahead.
Good morning. Two things. Okay, first one. I'd like to know if your guest has been able to go back and look at the Judeo-Christian founding of our country and the history, and wonder what was, and look at that and see that our country is prosperous and a success in such a short history, and wonder about that, and actually look at that and understand that, and the difference in the Muslim countries. And then the second thing is the Hillary Clinton thing. Please, I beg of you, don't vote for her just because she's a woman. I beg of you. I mean, check into her history, because her 30 years of crime and corruption, and probably beyond that, our country won't be a country that'll be able to take in refugees if we continue to go down the road of the Democrat Party. Please look into the Democrat Party history.
All right, Marilyn, thanks for the call. So any comment, real quick? Go ahead. No. We're good? Okay, so let's move along. Charles, thank you for holding, sir. You're on Talkback. Go ahead.
You're quite welcome. First, I'd like to thank those people for helping educate us in their culture. We need to know and understand that. But the thing I want to bring up is that the Christians over there in that country are receiving a whole lot worse than most anybody will ever realize. they don't have a chance to even talk. They're taken out and immediately killed. So I would like people to understand that the Taliban, ISIS, and that, they are not what you would call good Muslims, in my opinion. I know several in this town of Missoula, and they are fantastic people. They've answered a lot of my questions. Again, I go back to think about the Christians over there. Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you might have any personal stories. Did you ever encounter Christians in Kabul or in Afghanistan at all?
No, we had international colleagues, not Afghans. I have never seen a Christian Afghan in Afghanistan. Even if they arrest, it's not public. No, I don't have a lot of experience, but my international colleagues, when I was in Afghanistan, were treated very fairly and friendly at that time in the society among the people, because they were part of nation building in Afghanistan, and they were there to help people. But unfortunately, when the Taliban take hostages, they kill Afghans right away, but they keep the foreigners to exchange the hostages, or they keep them for the money. They don't kill them right away.
But the caller is correct when it comes to the treatment of Christians in countries where, as we mentioned, Sharia is the dominant form of the law and the constitution, whether it's Saudi Arabia or where, in the case of Syria, where the Islamic State rules, or other cases such as the possibility of Taliban taking hostages. They have no tolerance for religious diversity, religious freedom, and this is a challenge to all Muslims, because Islam would not have existed as a religion without borrowing from Christianity and Judaism. And for that very reason, the first fundamental expectation from any Muslim, doesn't matter from what sect or what origin, is to respect the teachings of Christianity and Judaism and provide the freedom and the rights of all Christians and Jews in their countries to practice their religion freely. Turkey does it. Several other countries do that. But your caller is absolutely correct. Where Sharia rules, there is no religious freedom.
Okay, we have like a minute and a half left. And Mike, I wish I had time to get your call in and get your answer, but I wanted to give Shaima and Mehrdad just a chance to kind of wrap up here real quick in a minute. Shaima, what have you learned from this program? What have you benefited from it? Do you feel better understood now, having a chance to share your story?
It's always interesting to have this type of conversation and get call from people, whether they are agree or disagree. Even from those people who disagree, we always learn from them. And, that's one of the most great things about America. Free society, talk about it, speak, you don't have to manipulate. Be honest, and talk about it.
Sets this program apart
exactly,
from many others. So,
and before closing, I'd like to thank you and thank everybody for having me here today. And I also like to thank Soft Landing, for helping newly immigrant coming to Missoula, which includes my sister.
Okay, well, there goes Facebook right there. Anyway, okay, now I want to say thank you to Shaima. Thanks for throwing that in there. I really appreciate that. Wow. Okay, so Shaima Khinjani and of course Mehrdad Kia for joining us this morning. Tomorrow, of course, it's Friday, and we have open phones from 9 to 10. You guys have a great day. You want to respond then? You're certainly welcome to. Have a great day, everybody.